So there's this fish that would starve that's going to starve to death. This fish is surrounded by food. It's a very interesting story. Now, what happened is that it's not because this fish can't swim, right? It's not because this fish is sick or anything, but it's something a behavioral change that happened to this fish weeks ago. I'm going to tell you the story, and it's something that I discovered in my life, and I feel affects many of us. And the terrifying part is that um, the moment you see it, you really can't see it. So, what happened? Um, Today, I'm going to describe this psychological phenomena, and it was discovered many years ago. It was first observed in a fish tank, right? An experiment that was carried out, and this thing is actually called the Pike effect, right? It kind of explains why smart people and, in short, almost all human beings, right, why they fall short of what they're expected to do. So, how did this happen? I think it was kind of like it was an experiment that um, some scientists carried out. So they put a pike. So a pike is this predator fish, right, that exists in fresh water, right? So it eats things like ducklings, frogs, mice. It also eats other fish, right? It's very predatory. So they got this rectangular tank, right? In the middle, they put a glass divider, right? So on one side of the tank, they put smaller fish, probably 10 or something, right? And on the other side of the tank, they put this large pike fish, right? Now, what happened? The pike fish saw those smaller fishes right through the glass this thing, and it just charged towards them, unknowing that there was a divider, right? A glass divider, and it kept hitting it. Thud, bam, bam, bam. So he did that a couple of times. He will rest, right? Maybe after an hour or two, to try it again. Bam. So I think for a couple of days, he saw that this wasn't working anymore. So after some time, after enough failures, right, it just stopped. It just stopped. The scientists then removed that glass, the glass divider. So those fish that were on the left, they started swimming, right, around the pikefish. And you won't believe that despite how close those fishes came, like food for the pikefish, it didn't do anything. It just stayed in one corner. They swam around the pikefish for days. It did not even try to open its mouth to just grab one, which would have even been less effort than charging towards them. Now that's called the pike effect. And guess what? That pikefish remained like that and it died. It starved to death. And this phenomena, which is known as the pike effect, is a limitation that no longer exists but continues to control present behavior because of the pain of past failure that has taught the brain to stop trying. And when I came across this, it really hit me because I would explain why. They say psychologists call this learned helplessness, and this is a concept where there was this particular scientist. I think his name is Martin Seligman in the 1960s. So he tried to place. I'm against the abuse of animals. He tried to give dogs um, mild electric shocks, right, so that they could not escape. And by the time they made an escape, they made everywhere. The dogs didn't bother, right? They just sat there and accepted that no, they couldn't escape. I think this is also similar to something like you might have seen pictures where a horse, right, is probably tied, has always been tied to something, and you can take the lightest thread and probably put it on the horse's neck and tie it to something, and it wouldn't move, right, because of that learned helplessness. The glass is gone in the case of the Pice effect, but it's like the ghost and the experience remains. Now, one thing is that it's not entirely bad because the brain is actually trying to protect you. But the problem is that the brain overgeneralizes failure. Um, and why am I saying that it's not entirely bad? I'll give an example. Imagine you put your hand into fire, right? Your hand gets burnt. Your brain is telling you, don't do that again, right? Because in doing that, right, your hand is going to get burned, right? That is actually a good thing, right? It's actually a very good thing, right, to keep you from harm. But the thing is that, like I stated, our brain overgeneralizes failure, right? Oh, you applied for, and I think the perfect example is concerning jobs. You applied for this particular job, they rejected you. You applied for another one, or maybe another time, maybe 6 months later, they rejected you. What happens is that your brain assumes, kind of creates a ceiling that, oh no, don't do that again. Don't apply to that job again, which is terribly wrong, right? Because I know of many, even a personal story whereby there was this particular, I've been applying for jobs, right, in this particular space, and I didn't get it. Then I saw one in that same space, and it actually had higher um, qualifications that I need than I had, right? But yet I still applied for it, and I got the job. So we you can begin to see many of these instances in our lives, right? Whereby you tried something, it didn't work. You tried it again, it didn't work. Your brain tells you, no, don't do that again. Don't even put in the effort. And you can see in the case of the pike fish effect, making even 10% of the effort it was making before would have gotten him food. But the pike just accepted the status quo, that no, this is just it. So I think if we can look at our lives, we see that many of the things that we are not doing or we've stopped doing is actually because of a learned behavior in the past that is still affecting us now, right? And I think this thing has to also do with traumas, do with soul wounds, due to things that have happened in our childhood, and we're like, oh no, I can't do that. A guy, for instance, probably walks up to a lady who is beautiful, and the lady um, ridicules him, and the guy just believes, I'm ugly, I can never be with someone who's beautiful and anything. That's exactly the same thing. And many of these decisions that we're making is based on a particular experience that we had in the past. And I think that um, this also goes beyond individuals. It also traps organizations, it traps countries and the rest, right? Many organizations, they won't want to try something because somebody who had tried it before, right, it was disastrous. And they're like, oh no, we are not going to venture into this thing. I think a good example would be in the music industry. Um, People, nobody wanted to go into the streaming, right? Because streaming was met with a lot of piracy. People sued their customers, people built walls, had a lot of gatekeeping from record labels, so nobody would venture into this. Almost everybody who ventured into this didn't make money until Spotify showed up, right? And they showed up with a viable model, and the industry sat there, and Spotify just ate up the market, right? So um, if you think about it, right, you just have to try, right? Now I don't know which is worth doing, right, but you just have to try. And so the question now is, how do we break through this glass? I think one way is, number one would be to actually be able to name it. You can be able to label it that, oh, this is the problem I see, right? Um, when when did this first happen? When did I first have this bad experience that is affecting my behavior today? The second one would be, don't necessarily try to convince yourself that the glass is gone, right? Just run a tiny experiment, right? You don't have to go full force like you went the previous time, right? You may just try maybe 10% of what you did before, or even 25%, right? Okay, can I try this, right? Let me see, let me test the waters. You don't necessarily need to go full force so that you are not as disappointed as you were before. And just like I explained in the case of the pike fish, right? The pike didn't need to go full force, right? Just by seeing those fish dancing around his nose, you can say, okay, let me just open my mouth, right, when one is passing and see if maybe this is real. And if the fish had done that, we're like, oh yeah, this is actually food. So maybe that other time something kept me from them, right? So I think um, I don't want to say just go full force, right? Or put all your effort in it, because you might again get disappointed, right? But it's good to run small, tiny bets in our lives concerning these things. And there will possibly be a new evidence that will say, oh yeah, this works. And I think the third one would be always watch out for this phrase and being realistic, right? More often than not, that phrase be practical, be realistic. It's fueled from doubt and unbelief, right? It's fueled from either people who don't believe in what you are going to do or who don't believe you can make it. Or it's even fueled from you, right? That feel like you don't deserve this. Oh, I'm just being practical. Oh, I'm just being reasonable. Who who made strides in this life by being practical and reasonable? No. The people we remember today, right? They were told that they were being nuts. So whenever you are telling yourself, "Oh no, I don't want to be disappointed," or "I'm being practical and reasonable," I think that's just fear in disguise. That's just the pike effect all over in disguise. So we should not be afraid to take a plunge, especially when it is not something that is to our detriment, right? For instance, putting your hand in fire. You know that if you put your hand in fire again, to get burnt, and doing that was to your detriment. But applying for a job, asking for an increase at work or a raise at work, it's not to your detriment. It's actually for your own benefit. So it's good that we don't put a ceiling up or put a dam on certain things in our lives whereby you're like, oh no, I can't try, because it just keeps us limited for the rest of our lives. So the question is, what's the glass wall? What's that glass wall or that glass ceiling that you've probably been hitting all these years and you've told yourself, no, I'm not going to bother? And it's something I think you can pray about and something you can also think about and reflect on, so that you know that no, this is probably just a glass ceiling, right? And I can keep trying and taking small tiny bets. Peace.